let's go. Yeah, I'm not surprised at that.
That's a hot thing right now.
Oh, damn, is it ever?
Yeah.
Right, I'll be taking this back to, I tell Tina, I'm like, I call her headquarters. I'm like, I would take this back to headquarters. She'll be like, of course. Okay, what are we doing? Penises? Let's go.
Take it back there because guys will be your biggest word of mouth marketing after you give them that one.
Yeah, no doubt. I know, yeah, no doubt.
Okay, guys, got Dawne here today. We're going to talk stem cells and psychedelics.
Yeah.
What a combo, huh?
Such a good combo. It's amazing.
I got to learn how you stumbled across this business.
Yeah. Okay, well, so I've got a background in medical aesthetics. I'm a medical esthetician, and I had a big medical aesthetics clinic. And it's the second one that I had. I built that from the ground up. And for about 5.5 years, I just worked myself to the bone. When you start a new business, that's what it takes, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's really no shortcuts. So I just got to the point where I was, getting pretty burnt out. But I had a couple clients that I had been doing treatments on, like laser resurfacing and that kind of stuff. So that's where I really started to kind of tap into stem cells because they were in their like late 60s, early 70s. And, I would do like a resurfacing treatment, a laser treatment on Rita, and she would just heal so quick. I'm thinking as you get older, your epidermis takes a little bit longer to heal. So, she'd roll in to get some sunscreen or something. I'd look at her face and I was like, okay, what's happening here? Like, why are you healing so quickly? So she eventually said to me, she said, well, listen, we've been going to Costa Rica since our 40s and we've been doing full body umbilical cord stem cell therapy. So that's where I really just kind of tapped into it. And I thought, okay, now it's kind of making sense because not only did these two heal really quick, but they were vibrant, never sick. You could just they moved really well. So I thought, okay, so I really started to tap into that. And my partner at the time, my medical director of my clinic, he had a background in vascular surgery and, he was doing Botox and filler and all the stuff in the clinic. And I went up, I said, Andrew, we need to do stem cells. And he said, what do you mean do stem cells? I said, we need to do full body umbilical cord stem cell therapy. And he said, oh yeah, no, we're not allowed. And I said, well, what do you mean we're not allowed? He said, we can't do that in Canada. You can't. I think we can do localized injections. And I said, well, why not? And he said, oh, I'm sure you'll tell me. Because I'm just that kind of person where I'm like, hey, I need to dig into this. So over the next couple of years, I started to really do a lot of personal research into it. And, I'm from Vancouver, Canada, and it was just kind of roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. I'm not a doctor or anything like that. So I only had limited access to that kind of stuff. So, I kind of let it go, but I really kept researching it still. So lo and behold, a few years later, I just got super burnt out. And I was like, man, I got to go on a vacay and get a little bit of work-life balance back. What can I do where I can go and just chill out? I knew I couldn't go to a yoga retreat because, back then I was pretty alpha A type. I'm like, I need to go somewhere where I cannot control the program. Yeah. I'll be running that shit by the end of the week. I'm like, I need to go somewhere. And a friend of mine had told me about ayahuasca. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to try this. And just a little sidebar on me, I'm ultra vanilla. Never done a drug in my life, barely take Tylenol. I am when people heard I was doing this, they're like, holy smokes, especially my son. He's a professional hockey player. He's like, Mom, do you know what you're going to do? Yeah. I said, yeah, I think this is what I need. So down to Costa Rica I go, and I did a week of ayahuasca, and lo and behold, the place that I went to had a stem cell therapy clinic.
Wow.
Site. I know. So I was like, and by that time, I had done about 5 years research. So I was really dialed in, and I was like, hey, this is epic, cool. So I did my week there, and I came back home. Total life-changing for me. Came back home, and about 3 months later, they reached out to me and said, hey, would you ever consider coming down here and working with us? I thought to myself, what am I going to do in an ayahuasca retreat? And they said, well, we would love for you to work in our stem cell clinic. And I just sat there and I'm like, okay, I have to do this. So, I took a couple days to think about it. And I thought, I'm going to sell my clinic because I can't be down in Costa Rica for half the year and be here running a successful clinic. So I sold my clinic, wrapped that deal up in about 5 months, and off to Costa Rica I went. And I was there for 2 years.
Wow.
And it was amazing. So I got to work in the stem cell clinic every day pretty much for 2 years. We did about 30 to 40 treatments a week. Yeah. So I really got to see the benefits of what stem cells do. So, I'm kind of in that position where it's like, you're not a doctor, you're not this, you're not that. I'm like, yeah, but I got the experience. And I do it myself, and I've seen it firsthand. It's just within 24 hours.
That quick?
Yeah, people with really bad rheumatoid arthritis, inflammation, pain generally gone next day. Like I've seen this like week after week after week for 2 years. And I'm such an experience-based person. Like I'm that type where I'm gonna prove it to me. Yeah, you got to prove it to me. Like if I'm going to talk about it or do it, like I got to know that it works. So I saw everything in that 2 years from chronic pain, like disc regeneration, autoimmune, Lyme, Crohn's, like just tons of things. And I kind of did my own research because the place that I was at didn't really do a lot of like pre and post research on the treatments, but I stayed in contact with a lot of the clients from there. Because I'm like, okay, well, this is cool. And I'm seeing this within 24 hours, but like, what's the long term on stem cell therapy? Like, what's the long term going to be? And I'm still in contact with these people and they feel amazing. And it's just, so, I was there for 2 years. I ended up coming back. I have 2 amazing business partners, which is a doctor and a nurse, so I got my heavies with me now. But I met them down there and they came and did stem cell therapy. So they were down there to do ayahuasca and they actually ended up doing stem cells with me when they were there because I was doing all the education and the consultations and whatnot. And Tina, my business partner, Dr. Hills, she looked at me and she's like, how the hell, like no offense, but like I'm an ER doc for the last 2 decades. How the hell do I not know about this? And she's from Texas, and I said, well, I've got my ideas as to why. Because if I told you what I'm about to tell you and how much I've seen that this heals and fixes things, that's why. So
you out of business.
Yeah. And she had been a powerlifter back in the day. So she had been dealing with like chronic back pain for years.
Yeah.
So she's like, I'm doing this. Like, I really want to do this. So she did the stem cells. Sure enough, gone.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I got back home and I ended up leaving Costa Rica and I came back home. I have 2 kids. My daughter just had a baby. So I'm like, I got to get back home. I can't be like that hippie grandma that like lives down in Costa Rica. And so, I came back, I guess, almost a year and a half ago now. And Tina reached out to me and said, hey, like we're thinking about getting into this. Like this changed my life. And she said, I've been a doctor now for over 2 decades in the ER. And she said, and I really want to help people heal. Like I want to help them with this. I just don't want to be putting them on a bunch of pharmaceutical drugs and managing their symptoms. Like I really want to help them in this like last leg of, work for me. So I said, girl, I'm in. Like, what are we going to do? What's this going to look like? And so what we've done is we've put together like little clinics, so we can't do it in Canada. So you cannot, localized injections are what they allow in Canada. Typically, they're from your own, like you can get donor cells in Canada, but typically they have you harvest them from your bone marrow or your fat, which is stem cells not even doing what they're supposed to be doing in the first place. So essentially, to me, it's like a cortisone shot, really, when you're doing that kind of thing. So we offered in the US only. And the nice thing about the US is they've got something called the research and development model. So we're able to operate under that. But we're not allowed to say it heals anything, right? We're not allowed to call it a treatment. We have to call it therapy, but we don't care because we're like, you know what? We'll call it a therapy. We won't claim that it heals anything, although it does. And we'll just roll.
Yeah, your customers will talk about it.
Yeah, 100%. Well, because the results are just unbelievable.
Right. It's better than any pill, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm the one that it's like, I've had so much experience with it that it's like people will try to like, well, what about this? And what about this? And what about that? And I'm like, there's all sorts of things that come up just because people aren't really educated on it. And a lot of Canadian doctors, like they're not even allowed to talk about it.
Wow.
Right. They're not even allowed to like, I've got some very good friends that are doctors and they're like, we want to refer clients to you, Dawne, but like we risk losing our license. Like we are not allowed to be, I know. So I'm like, okay, well, you don't have to tell them that I'm like, just get them over here. So we do it in the US. So we're doing it in Birch Bay, Washington, New York, Vegas.
Oh, nice.
So
You
Texas.
got it in Vegas?
Yeah. So we're doing pop-up clinics.
Okay.
And the nice thing about us is we want to travel. Like we're all in a position where we can really kind of do what we want. And that's what we love, right? It's like, we went to New York. We did a concierge, service for a group of people. And it's like, yeah, we'll come to you. And that's the other way of keeping our costs down as well. Because you can go to Central America and there's some amazing stem cell clinics out there. Because, stem cell therapy in Central America is normal medical practice.
Really?
Like when you tell them over there, this is not offered, like broadly offered in the US or Canada, they're like, why? It's the best thing on the planet. What? Really?
Yeah.
Like, it's a little too healing. It
They
fixes
don't got
everything.
big pharma over there.
That's right. Exactly. They do, but it's a very separate, it's not, there's not the big cahoots like there is here.
Yeah, because of the insurance probably.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Have you seen the urine stem cells stuff too?
Yeah. I actually saw that on your podcast. I was looking.
I wonder how that effectiveness is compared to like the umbilical cord.
Yeah. Well, and I can't really speak to that because I haven't done a lot of research into that. I actually just listened to that on your podcast. That would be something Dr. Hills would definitely be able to know, right off the cuff. But I don't know, like the efficacy of them once they're in here. Like, I don't know if they would be, I don't know. That's interesting. I will look into it though, because I saw that. I thought this is interesting, you know. But there's so much more in urine, right? That you got to contend with other than just doing pure umbilical cord stem cells. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. How often are you getting stem cells on you?
I did them about 2.5 months ago. And then before that, about 3 years.
Okay.
So I do them basically for preventative. So, because before you have anything going on in your body, you have symptoms, and that's when you know. So you never really know if anything's going on until you have the symptoms. So, stem cells, they go in and they address. The cool thing about them is they go in and they address things that you know about, but also things that you don't. Right? So I'm a big preventative, and so I'll probably do them once every 3 years.
Smart.
Something like that.
And you'll stack a little ayahuasca.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've done 54.
That's the most
I
I've
should
heard.
be a Buddha, right?
That's the most I've heard by probably 10x.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That might be a record.
Yeah. Well, you know what the crazy part is I've worked with people there that have done hundreds.
No way.
Hundreds.
What?
Yes, hundreds of ceremonies. I know. I'm like a baby bird. There's people that have been I'm talking in the hundreds,
I
if
feel like
not
there's
thousands.
diminishing returns at that point, though.
It can be a slippery slope. So when you're doing that much plant medicine, one of the biggest things with doing psychedelics and plant medicine is to make sure you're doing the integration, right? So you can do these plant medicine ceremonies, and then it's then you tap in, because you tap into your subconscious mind when you're in that. And then you got to come back to this reality, and you got to function here. But you can't unknow what you just went through. So integration is really, really, it's a big component. So when you're going into something like that, especially we do medically led plant medicine therapy, for trauma. And it's really important that, you help people process,
right?
Because sometimes it can be a little tough to be in this reality, and you're because you go back and you can see certain things. And so, yeah, integration's huge. Now, when you get into the people that are doing a lot of say ayahuasca, for example, say in hundreds of ceremonies, they're not taking time to do the integration. It can go the opposite direction. It can inflate the ego, right? And then you've got it's almost like you're dealing with this big, dark, heavy energy.
Right.
Right? Because you have to integrate that. Because if not, it's kind of just stacks and stacks and stacks. So, I don't know a ton about that. I recently, kind of ran into a situation like that. But a really good friend of mine, she's a clinical psychologist and psychotherapist. And she deals with a lot of people that journey in plant medicine. So one of the things that she is, really adamant about, which we practice as well, it's before you do any sort of therapy with her, you have to have an integration plan in place. She's it doesn't have to be with me, but they have to do that.
That's cool.
Because that's where you really get the benefits. You take the wisdom that you learned and you apply it into your life.
Yeah.
Here, right?
You got to do your due diligence on the retreats too, right? Because there's a lot of scams and stuff.
100%. You really want to make sure where you're going is safe. And, one of the biggest things is people don't understand, but there's medications that you can't be on, like SSRIs. You got to make sure that you're off of certain medications, because ayahuasca is no joke.
Yeah.
And it's produces DMT. So there's all sorts of stuff going on. So, with retreats, you just really want to make sure that there's a medical team, right? There is in Costa Rica, there's a few, some that are just medically led. There should always be a medical intake. You really want to make sure you're doing it with a shaman, not Ted from Seattle that claims to be a shaman. He's coming to North Van and he's doing ayahuasca in someone's basement.
What?
You'd be shocked. People do that.
That's...
because these people, they're pretty convincing, right? They're pretty convincing because this plant medicine space is just really becoming a thing right now. And there's a lot of people that are kind of getting into it and wanting to capitalize on it.
Right.
So you just really got to be careful.
Yeah, if I'm doing ayahuasca, I want to be in a jungle.
Yeah.
I don't want
legit.
a dark basement.
No, you want to be with the Colombians or whatever, someone that actually knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And, because it can really be an amazing, beautiful thing.
I've seen it heal a lot of trauma.
Yep.
Which everyone has these days.
Yep. Everybody's got something, right? Like whether it was just something as simple as being left in your crib as a baby to cry, which the old school baby boomers thought that was a thing. Like, I worked in ceremony. I worked in ayahuasca ceremony for probably about a year. When I was there. And it's like when you sit with people and you talk to them after, it's like everybody's trauma is so different.
Yeah.
And what would be like nothing to say you or me was huge to them at that time, right? Like, and a lot of people's brains, everybody's brains are developing from the time they're born to about 14, like solidly. So, there's a lot of trauma that goes on in that first 7 years, especially.
Right.
So yeah, that's what ayahuasca helps you tap back into that kind of those areas. And
which one of your 54 stands out to you the most?
Ooh, let me see.
Was it the first one?
Oh, this one probably stands out the most. There was a night I was in ceremony and it was loud, just loud in my ceremony. And I was sitting there and, the medicine said to me, listen, just chill out. Because what happens was I'm a total control freak. I never lose control. I like to be in control. And the medicine said to me, if you just sit and get quiet, just chill out. And just sit with trust, just trust. And she said, and then I'm going to make you feel like you've never felt in your life. So a lot of the time in ayahuasca, when you'd start to get that really good sensation, like most people aren't used to feeling that good, right? Like, because, you think about the food, you think about lifestyle, like most of us don't even know how crummy we actually feel. So that ceremony, I sat there, and I'm not kidding you, Sean, for 2 hours, like a Buddha, sat in ceremony. And my boyfriend was working in ceremony that night, and he's like, babe, where did you go? Like, you were literally like a statue. I said, I know. I turned into that concrete statue that's outside, and I just was sat there for 2 hours. And then I had the most amazing feelings throughout my whole body. And by that time, I was able to not panic, to be like, hey, what the hell is this? And that was really profound for me, because I actually just was able to sit, got really quiet. I'm like, okay, I'm going to trust this. I'm not going to try to figure it out. You can never figure out ayahuasca. Everybody tries to make sense of it. And it's one of those things where it's like, don't try to make sense of it, because you're just not going to be able to.
Yeah.
And that one really stood out to me. It's like when we get really quiet, we quiet our minds. Sometimes you can go to the most beautiful place. So
absolutely,
that was a big one for me. And I remember that one often. I do daily meditation, and I kind of go back to that ceremony, and I'm just like, okay, yeah. And I can go into that same place of feeling unreal. So that was a big one for me. Yeah.
Did you see aliens on that one?
No, I've never seen aliens.
On any of the 54?
No.
Because a lot of people say they see something.
They see some cool stuff. And one of the cool things about ayahuasca is, so the place that I was at, we did about 100 people a week. Yeah. So I know anywhere between say 50 to 100, mostly 100, right? So you've got 100 people doing ayahuasca together. So when you talk to people and week after week, it's like they kind of saw the same things, right? There's, for instance, there's these little minions, right? And or there's this huge octopus, or there's this praying mantis. So it's week after week, I'm like, okay, shit. People are seeing the same things in this, and it's people that don't know each other. So yeah, there's some cool stuff. I never saw anything like that.
That's interesting.
I saw some cool stuff. There was actually one night where I was in ceremony, and I thought, I'm feeling okay. I'm going to go back to my room. I think I'm done with ceremony. And I worked there. So typically you can't go back to your room. You got to wait till ceremony's over. But I was like, I'm fine. I'll go back to my room. And I went over to my boyfriend and said, babe, I'm going to go back to the room. I'm good. He's like, you're not going back to the room. He's like, it's midnight. You need to stay here. He's like, just go chill by the fire. So I'm like, okay, because the cool thing about ayahuasca too is you kind of feel coherent, you know what I mean? So it's you kind of oh, okay, I'm good. So I went out to the fire and I laid on the concrete bench, and I'm laying there, and all of a sudden I could see this village in the grass, a fully functioning little village of I'm like, I'm not okay to go back to her. Holy shit, good thing you made me stay. And, and it was one of those things where it's it just looks like this. It wasn't trippy. I've never done any sort of psychedelic where I really see that trippy, whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't really have anything to compare it to. But, there's pintas and ayahuasca and the kaleidoscope stuff. And I never saw any of that.
Wow.
I know people would tell me, I'm like, damn, I haven't seen that. I really want to see
I wonder
that.
why some people see it and others don't.
Yeah, I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting that, but quite a few people do see it, and then there's quite a few people that don't. Right? So everyone's so unique and so different. So, and never is there a ceremony that's the same.
Really?
You would think you would kind of start to get used to it. Every single one is different. They're never the same.
Different in what way?
Every way. Sometimes it can be the most beautiful, amazing, fantastic night. And then the next night, you're in the fucking depths of hell. Like, I'm not even kidding. You're like, oh, there were so many times where I'm like, I'm never doing this again. Like, babe, we got to go back to Canada. We got to go home. This shit's crazy. And then it's like, okay, what day am I going to do it next week? So working there, I drank sometimes once or twice a week. So that's why I was able to, do so many ceremonies. But one thing with me is just instinctively, I knew I needed to do the integration because I'm such a prove it to me person. Like, I didn't try to figure everything out. But, there was times where I'd come out of ceremony and I'd be like, what the hell was that? And then 6 months later, something comes up and I'm like, okay. Because there's not always for right now, right? It can be like for now, a week later, 6 months later, 2 years later.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty cool.
I believe in that too. I think everything happens for a reason.
100%.
And some people want it instantly, but it takes time for certain things.
Yeah, exactly. It took you however long to get where you're at. Like it's, so yeah, it's just, it's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
I hope they look more into it in the US, psychedelics, and maybe legalize some of them.
I'm hoping so because, for like PTSD and trauma, it's one of the most amazing things. And the place where I was at, we had a ton of like war veterans, a ton of people come through that were, a lot of them suicidal, that were just having a really hard time living after what they had gone through. And I mean, there's probably like 3 or 4 guys that really stick out in my mind that, at the end of a ceremony, people can share if they want. And, one gentleman in particular came in and he had tried to commit suicide a couple times. He had watched his best friend get blown up, his wife get blown up. And he's like, I just don't want to be here anymore, man. Like, this is my last hope. And by the end of that week, he stood up and he's like, I am so happy to be alive. And, he forgave himself. And just so it's really transformative, when you can really sit with something like that and tap in and, really like go inside. And, because one of his big things that he shared is like, like I was allowed to kill women and children and for what? And it's like, whew, that was powerful, because he had this guilt. And so by the end of that week, he was forgiving himself. He was feeling amazing. And we're just like,
I love that.
I know, right? And, you think of how many people struggle, especially in the US. I mean, Canada, we don't really have like the big military, anything like that. So we don't really hear a lot of that there. But in the US, I mean, there's and a lot of the people that came to where I was at, 90% were Americans.
Really?
Yep.
Damn. We
I know. We got some healing to do. But they're doing the work, like they're doing the work. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Like that is not a party. It's not a vacation. It's not a party. It's serious work. And it's pretty awesome.
America might have the most trauma out of anyone.
No doubt.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Even though we got all this money,
I know.
Mental health out here is terrible.
Yeah. And that's one of the big things with us, like we want to get people back to a place where they're feeling good. Their bodies are feeling good. And, we coach them not only with the regenerative medicine, but like we coach them with like breath work and meditation and really like a lifestyle as well. And, like with doing the medically led, plant medicine therapy, it's been amazing, and the biggest thing for me is safety, right? So, I have a lot of Canadian clients and friends, and I recruit a lot of Canadians to come down and see us in Birch Bay, Washington. And that's the big thing. It's like, my business partner is an ER doc, ER nurse. They're both so incredibly wise and have so much, and they've done ayahuasca. I think each of them have done maybe about 12 ceremonies, but, they're those real, like, Dr. Hills is like your real doctor. Like, she's also an osteo doc. So she gets into your body and manipulates your organs and like helps you to, figure out what's stuck. And so we prepare the body. So she'll do a 90-minute bodywork session, like an osteo energetic bodywork session, prepare your body. So like she'll be in people's shoulder blades so deep and she'll be like, ooh, what are you holding on? What is this? Right? And we'll just have people releasing trauma.
I need that.
Yeah, I know, right? And she's just like, it's the most amazing thing to watch. I kind of joke, I'm like the water girl. I'm the assistant. And but I learned so much watching her work. So we love that. We pride ourselves on that, is really preparing the body and then doing the stem cells, but also, having the integration. We have to have that because people are really processing a lot of emotion, right? There's so much emotion when you get into their body. And because, a lot of trauma, a lot of people hold that in their tissue.
Yeah.
And so you're holding that, like some people hold it in their shoulders, stomach, wherever. So she gets into the body and it's like she just zones in on it.
I love that. I love how you incorporate both, like their physical and the spiritual.
Yeah.
Because a lot of doctors focus on one.
Exactly. And managing the symptoms. Like, Tina, like we get to the root. We're like, okay. But it's like we start with the body, right? So it's like, okay, let's work. Like, let's find out what's the problem? What's the real problem here? So we get into their body and, get them talking and get them processing things and then coach them from there too. Because a lot of people come in and they're like, holy shit, I don't know why I just talked about that or what's going on, but like, now what? We're like, we got you, don't worry. Yeah. And that's where integration is so important, and her and Troy know the body so incredibly well. And, they coach on diet, like a mindful practice. And we're all kind of crazy nuts. We cold plunge, do breath work, meditation. I was just telling them, I'm like, Rain Man, I have the same routine. Like, man, I do the same shit every single day. And we left Texas. We left Houston yesterday and I didn't have time to get a coffee. Yeah. And I'm like, that's part of my routine. I get up in the morning, I make my coffee, I journal, I read, I do my meditation, I cold plunge, and I couldn't get a coffee because we were running a bit behind. So then we finally get to the airport, Starbucks. I grab a Starbucks, they messed up my order. So I'm like, oh, damn. So I go get another one, messed it up again. So I'm like, screw it. I'm just gonna, whatever.
Yeah, that's a sign at that point.
It is. And they had put a bunch of vanilla syrup in it. I'm like, I cannot drink this. So I threw it out. Then we get on the plane and the plane was delayed 2 hours.
Jeez.
So we're sitting on the plane for 2 hours, no coffee service. So I'm just sitting there going, holy shit. And Tina's looking at me, she's like, you're pretty good considering. And I'm like, man, but like, I just have that routine, like routine. And it serves me, right? Because that's how I start my day.
Yeah.
Every single day I started with a really solid foundation and I just get really quiet. It goes back to that ceremony and ayahuasca. And it's like, man, this is where I'm going to start. I really take care of my body and my mind. And then I just go from there.
That's the hardest part of the day. So if you can lock that in, the rest of the day is easy.
Yeah. Well, cold plunging, there's days where I'm like, I'm crazy. Why am I doing this? Like there's days where I will cold plunge. Like I've smashed the ice off of the top of my cold plunge and jumped in. And I'm like, everything else today is going to be so easy after doing this, and you feel amazing. Like it's the craziest, most amazing dopamine hit for like 6 hours, So
wow,
it's
it lasts that long?
Yeah. If the temperature is the correct, you can't be in like lukewarm.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you literally like, and I do like the hot and cold, so I'll sauna and do the cold plunging. You should always end on the cold, but just your body feels unreal. And so, I mean, actually someone said to me that I've never done cocaine in my life. Someone said,
what a line right there.
that you get that same feeling, like that initial same feeling, but for like a 6-hour period.
Wow.
I'm like, why aren't these people that are addicted to cocaine cold plunging? Like legit.
You should put that on a shirt right now.
I know, right? No shit.
I got to start cold plunging. Right? I got a pool, but
it's amazing.
It's actually really hot now, so I don't think that would work anymore, but maybe I'll buy a tub.
Yeah, do it.
I got a sauna already. That's a game changer.
Oh, it's such a game changer. I did that this morning. Like I just sauna, I do my meditation. I'm a microdoser. So I microdose mushrooms.
Oh yeah.
5 on, 2 off. And I'll just, take my microdose. I'll go sit in the sauna. And most of the time that's where I just get into my meditation is in there. Do that for like 30 minutes. And then do the cold plunge and yeah, like it's such a game and it's so good for you too, right? Like it's so good.
I love microdosing.
Yeah, I know, me too. I've started doing it now probably, I guess I've been like solid microdoser for, I don't know, I want to say like maybe 8 or 10 months.
Okay.
Yeah, love it.
I need to start getting into a routine with it because I'm just off and on with it.
Yeah. And it's one of the things where a lot of people will say to me, well, what am I going to feel? Or what am I going to see? Or they're nervous because they're like, geez, I got to work today. I'm like, yeah, but that's the point. You can. You're not going to be seeing anything. You're not having a party. You're not getting high. You're not going to start to see weird things. I said, one of the biggest things for me with microdosing is, I just feel that it just kind of helps you to process things better, slows things down. You're much more present. And, with how busy I am and all the things that I have going on, I just find that it's like, it grounds me, right? Like it's fantastic. And kind of like smooths me out a little bit. I said to my boyfriend one day, I said, babe, can you tell when I'm not microdosing? He's like, oh yeah. I said, how? He's like, you're just a little more hardcore. He's like, when you're microdosing, you're a little bit nicer.
You're more locked in.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a natural Adderall, people say.
100%. And one of the big things too is that's another thing with microdosing mushrooms is that's a huge train everyone's wanting to capitalize on right now. Right. And that's another thing. It's like, if you're going to be microdosing, like really look into who the founder is, like what's their why. I'm working with a guy, his name's Keegan Dawne, and he owns a company called Mindful Meds. And I talked to him a number of times before I started taking his mushrooms because I wanted to know, I'm like, what's your background? Like, how did you stumble across this? Like, what's your motivation? Right. And it's really important because I feel that the mushrooms really hold the energy of who's at the top,
100%.
So for me, he's just that he's unreal and he's super knowledgeable. He's got a great story, and he really truly wants to help people heal. And that's why I was like, bro, we're going to collab. Like so we refer a lot of people to his website because we also try to get people on that as well.
Yeah.
Right. So it's part of like that mindful, it's great. You can come and do stem cells with us and we can get you in real good shape, but you want to maintain it. Right. Like that's the thing. So, yeah, it's been a huge thing.
No, I love that mindset because the quality of the supplement or whatever you're taking, whether it's stem cells or mushrooms, you need to do your research. What are the most common issues you're seeing for people that come in your clinics health-wise? What are they dealing with?
Dealing with a ton of inflammation. Inflammation's at the base of pretty much everything. Inflammation, tons of autoimmune, a lot of self-diagnosed mental health, because that's the thing. Let's see. Yeah, that's those are the big ones. That kind of almost covers it. I mean, inflammation typically is at the base of everything. So a lot of that, lots of we're seeing. Like irritable bowel syndrome, like we're just seeing all sorts of autoimmune. And that's another thing that I saw in my 2 years in Costa Rica, a lot of autoimmune people coming back, coming in on 6 or 7 or 10 medications, they do their stem cells, they come back. And I see them say 6 months later, they're like, I have no autoimmune and I'm on nothing.
Oh,
I know. This is crazy. The shit that's going on. Like it's epic.
When you were growing up, was autoimmune even common or?
No. Nothing like that. There was no autism in our group of kids. There was a little bit of ADHD, but that was kind of like still kind of, barely there. But as far as autoimmune, no. And I'm 48, so it's like, that wasn't really a thing at all. But, you got to think of how many vaccines they're giving these babies now, how food has changed, like just how everything has changed over that time. Right. So all of this stuff is linked to all of that, I believe.
The autism rates are crazy right now.
They're so crazy.
They just updated the California numbers. I think 1 in 20 something now.
It is crazy, like legit. And there's a doctor, actually, his name's Dr. Neil Royden. And I know Joe Rogan, Mel Gibson, those guys, they've gone to him. He's got one of the biggest stem cell clinics in Panama. He's doing some epic stuff with autism.
Really?
Like he's actually I believe he's from Tennessee originally. And he's got a clinic, in the States here, a stem cell clinic, but he can't do what he's doing out in Panama. And he's written a book called Stem Cells: A Rising Tide. And he's doing some epic stuff with autism. So we've actually got a couple clients that have children with autism, and we're gonna do our own. We're gonna get them. We're gonna do stem cells. We're gonna do body work.
Really?
We're gonna like take them on that journey and really do our own. Like, okay, let's see, what we can do with these kids. So I'll keep you updated because we have a couple that are gonna come.
I didn't know stem cells could even help with that. That's a new thing I'm hearing.
Stem cells are amazing. So we use umbilical cord stem cells. So a lot of people get them confused with embryonic, right? There's a huge black market for embryonic stem cells because they come from an embryo.
Black market?
Black market, yeah, because it's like aborted fetuses, right? Like they come from embryos. So, that is something that is out there. But, when you get embryonic stem cells, well, those stem cells want to turn into something, right? So typically people will sometimes get those done and have like a growth, say they have a growth on their shoulder, then they get it removed and it's got like hair, teeth, like just crazy stuff like that. Yeah. And so it's really important if you're going to be doing stem cells, you want to be doing umbilical cord stem cells And predominantly, the umbilical cord is a huge mix. Not all stem cells are created equal. So the mesenchymal stem cells, and you'll hear them called MSCs, those are the ones that we use because they're like the most potent. They're like the building blocks of the human body. And when you get them out of the umbilical cord, they're such an immature cell. Your immune system doesn't even know they're there until they've matured and they've done all the work. So what they do is the stem cells will go in and they will lay the foundation. So they're attracted to anything in your body. Your body will put off like an electromagnetic signal whenever it needs repairing or healing, anything's off. So the stem cells go in and they basically lay the foundation in your system. And then a lot of people are starting to ask us about exosomes, right? So exosomes are basically, they're excreted from a stem cell. So they're like the little messengers. So the stem cells lay the foundation and the exosomes go out there and they're just like little messengers. So what happens is it's typically, what it's doing is it's getting your own body to upregulate, right? So it's getting your own body to send stem cells to those areas, start to repair, heal, duplicate, and so on. So, but exosomes only typically stay in your body for anywhere from 2 days to a week, whereas stem cells can stay in there laying the foundation anywhere from like say a month to say 6 months.
Damn.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. What we'll do is we'll have people come back at the 3-month mark. You know, people with like, we've got a couple clients that had really bad knees and we're going to do surgery. And, you know, we said, just come and do this with us first. Like, let's just see from there. No surgery.
Dang.
No surgery. Yeah. One guy's a hockey player. And, you know, he came and he's like, look, I just want to play hockey. My son's going to be, you know, I can't remember how old his son's going to be. He's like, but I want to play with him. He's like, and my knees are so bad. Like basically he was doing it just so he could play hockey. I think he was my age. And, you know, we get messages. So I do a 1-month check-in. He's like, man, like I got no pain. He's like, this is crazy. I did leg day at the gym the other day. He's like, Dawne, I'm in. I'm ready to do more. And so for someone like that, I'm like, just come do some exosomes. Right? Like the stem cells are still there. They've laid that foundation. So we don't need to dose you up with more stem cells, but we're going to do some exosomes because that foundation is there. So, you know, people will say to me, well, can I just do exosomes on their own? And, you know, I think I said on my social media the other day, that's like sending a UPS truck full of a bunch of packages with no addresses on them. That guy's not going to know where to take them. So it's like, no, you want to make sure that you've done stem cells so that they lay the foundation. They're the live cell, right? The exosomes are just the little messenger. So that's what we'll do for that. So, you know, we kind of put them on a journey and, you know, they can keep healing and repairing and
love it.
So yeah.
Have you given any pee shots yet? That's a hot thing these days.
Any what?
The pee shots.
No.
You haven't heard of that?
No.
Oh, that's the trend right now. Look into that.
Like pee shot as far as like urine? Pee?
No, it's stem cells in the penis.
Oh, in the penis.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. We have started to like look at all sorts of different things. Like, you know, like even injecting them, like people with losing their hair, like right into their ears, like all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
So no, cool.
Yeah. Look into that.
You know what? I feel like I kind of came across something like that a few months ago.
It's hot right now.
Okay.
A lot of guys are
So
getting.
benefits are?
A lot of people have ED.
Okay. Yep.
So it helps with that because they can't even get up.
Right.
You know.
So they're injecting the stem cells right into
the vein. Yeah.
They are. Okay. Yeah. So, well, the nice thing with full body umbilical cord stem cells is they go through your whole system. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, but hey, if you want to do a little more localized, why not? Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure most guys are like, just put it right in there. Let's go. Yeah. I'm not surprised at that.
That's a hot thing right now.
Oh, damn. Is it ever?
Yeah.
Right. I'll be taking this back to, you know, I tell Tina, I'm like, I call her headquarters. I'm like, I would take this back to headquarters. She'll be like, of course. Okay, what are we doing? Penises? Let's go.
Take it back there because guys will be your biggest word of mouth marketing after you give them that one.
Yeah, no doubt. I know. Yeah, no doubt. Awesome.
Oh, I want to ask this. When your daughter gave birth, did they let her keep the placenta and the cord?
I love that you asked this because they didn't even really know anything about that, as crazy as that. So maybe it's different in the US. And I'll get into like the lab that we work with and where they get our cords from. But I was in Canada and I said to the girl in the delivery room, I said, so like if we wanted to keep her umbilical cord, and she kind of is like, well, like, what do you mean? Like just the cord, the whole thing? Like, I said, yeah. So if we wanted to do that, she's like, oh, you would have had to like set that up a long time ago. And then you have to have it within 8 hours. And she's like, no one really does that. Like, that's not really, so they're not educated on it really at all.
Wow.
At all.
That's crazy.
And, you know, for me sitting in there, I'm like, isn't this interesting? Like, that's our business. We do umbilical cord stem cell therapy, right? So in Canada, it's not really, I got to experience that firsthand 7 weeks ago. And they're really not educated on it at all. She's like, yeah, no one really does that.
I heard in the US, they just throw them out.
Yeah, well, so what will happen is when you give birth in the US, and I can't say it's like this at every single hospital, but they'll say to them, do you want to keep your umbilical cord? Do you want to discard it, or do you want to donate it to science? So we work with a lab out of Miami, and that's like when they say they want to donate to science, that's when our lab steps in they get the umbilical cords then. So they're all ethically sourced, but I was waiting for that. I had my kids are 26 and 27, and I was waiting for that because it didn't happen when I had my kids, but I thought this must be a thing now. No, not in Canada.
That's so
Still
much
not.
opportunity that
I
they're
know it is.
leaving on the table.
I know, but you kind of think, what are they doing with them? Are they actually throwing them
That's
out?
the whole rabbit hole right
Are
there.
they? But who knows, right? Yeah. So, the lab that we are dealing with is fantastic. They do super stringent testing, and we are only taking umbilical cords from unvaccinated donors, so no COVID vaccine. So it goes through a huge stringent testing process. So even when they go through the checklist, they still have a testing process after that. Which is, really important for a lot of people.
Can you tell if it's a vaccinated umbilical cord?
Well, like us personally,
Like, do you notice a difference, like with the stem cells, I guess?
You know what? I can't say because we've never used any other than ones that are and you know what? And it's not like zero vaxes. It's just that particular no COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
So not saying that the umbilical cords we get the people have never had vaccines, but it's just that particular one.
Yeah, because that one's so rushed. Yeah.
I know. That's why it's like, and so many people are concerned, right? Because there's been so much craziness since then. So can we
Canada treated that terribly. I couldn't even go there.
Oh my God. It was part of my burnout because I pushed against that so hard. I had my clinic, and I was probably about a month in, I'm like, something's not right. This is messed up. I believe there's this virus or whatever but something's not, I just had this weird feeling. I'm like, something's off. So I never really went along with any of the narratives because it just wasn't sitting with me. It wasn't sitting right. And, I had my own clinic, and they were wanting everyone to wear masks and, interior health and work safe. That's my regulating body. They're like, everyone has to do this, and you have to have your clinic everything 6 feet apart and all this PPE. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. I said, I just spent over $1 million on my tenant improvement. I've got the nicest clinic the city's ever seen, and I'm not putting that shit up in here. And I don't believe it. So I actually got to the point where I was being hassled so much. So I said, you know what? I got a hold of Interior Health. So that's Health Canada, and Work Safe. And I said, you guys need to come to my clinic because I want to have a meeting. I'm going to have all my staff there.
Wow.
And we're going to record it. I said, if you guys can convince me, like back it up, that all this shit that you want me to do in my clinic is going to work, and you got to prove it, I'll do it. You got to prove it. So we had a 2-hour meeting. We recorded the whole thing. They could not prove it.
Did you publish that?
Pardon?
Did you publish that meeting?
I didn't, but I still have it.
Okay.
I've got it recorded. I never thought to do that. I thought to do that. I know, right?
At the time, it would have went viral. I don't know if it still would.
Right.
Maybe. Who knows?
But my staff had such a sense of empowerment because I'd been telling them, and they were with me, but they're kind of like, yeah, but don't, you're kind of like, no one gets to tell you what to do, like that.
Yeah.
And I said, no, you guys, I really feel this. So after that meeting, when WorkSafe left and Interior Health left, they signed off because every business had to have a safety plan through that. They signed off on my safety plan. I said, keep doing what you're doing. I said,
Really?
oh, I will. Now, there was one kind of little loophole. I was the first clinic in the province. Maybe the country, I can't say that for sure, to have a liquor license. So I had a liquor license so I could serve wine, come in for laser and I give you a glass of wine. So I had a liquor primary. So this was the messed up thing in Canada. Is you had to walk in with your mask on, but as soon as you sat down, you could take it off.
Yeah.
So I had that liquor primary, right? So so I had that going on anyways. And I'm like, you guys cannot convince me that these people are endangered. The 6 feet from my front door to where they're sitting down. I'm like, no, there's never masks were enforced in my clinic.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't wrap my head around this. It's just nuts. So yeah, I just got to the point where, I was locking my clinic door. Every single person that came in had to talk to me and get through me because my staff were being hassled a little bit, but I never backed down.
Wow.
I'm like, no way, I'm not doing it. So it burnt me out because it's 2 years of fight mode. But it was worth it, We lost some clients, but man, when we actually got to open again, because Canada closed everybody down for about 3 months.
Jeez.
When we opened again, we were so busy. And I had so many people being like, you know what, Dawne, thank you. Thank you for keeping this like a normal, safe place. I'm like, yeah, no doubt. I'm fucking burnt out. I got to go drink ayahuasca, get my shit together. But no problem. I got you guys.
Shout out to you.
Right?
Yeah. Canada might have been the worst place to be during the pandemic.
It was brutal.
You guys couldn't even leave, right? You had a curfew and you couldn't leave the country.
Yeah, it was insanity. Like, and I was the type that I was traveling even through that. Like, I literally tried not to let it affect my life. Like, legit, I went to Costa Rica, and then I ended up, I sold my business in the middle of the pandemic, which was like, oh, thank God. But yeah, it was haywire. There was a lot of craziness going on. Some provinces back east worse than others. Vancouver wasn't too bad, but like Toronto, Quebec, those places.
Liberal over there.
Oh yeah, 100%. They're the ones responsible for the Liberal government still being in Canada.
Right now, it's looking even scarier.
It's so brutal. I know. I've just gotten past that point of like, I throw my hands up. Is it a teenager? I'm like, I'm moving to Texas. I'm like, I'm moving here with you guys. Yeah,
do that too.
Exactly, right? I'm like in this neutral space, right? That used to get me going, but I'm like, it is what it is. It was a disappointment, but it's like, well, what can you do? Right? You just got to figure it out.
Well, Dawne, it's been really fun. We'll link your stuff below. Anything else you want to close off with here?
You know what? Just thank you. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for sitting with me. And yeah.
I'll stop by the clinic. Maybe we can record a little session.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah. I'd love that. It'd be fantastic. Yeah.
Cool. Check her out, guys. Check out the clinic. See you next time.